Hey y'all, who dat and what is up? I am Jeff Nowak, and this is Inside Black and Gold. We are getting ready for Week 15. The Saints 3-10, but with good vibes. I think maybe you tell me. Hosting the Carolina Panthers, winners of 2 of their last 3, but losers of 1 of their last 1 against the Saints. Will this week be any different? We'll have to wait and see. We're going to get you ready for the game. It's going to be another preview episode. But as we did last week, it's going to be kind of a half and half. We're going to bring in Steve Geller in the second segment. We're going to call it a Steve and Stuff segment rather than a Breeze and Stuff segment. We're going to talk a little quote unquote young guys like Tyler Shough. We're going to talk some quote unquote old guys like Cam Jordan. And we're going to talk about who we want to see break out over the final month of the season and what that would mean going forward, all that good stuff. After that, we're going to hear a nice long interview that Mike Haas, voice of the Saints, did with Saints rookie running back Devin Neal. We've been hearing a lot from Devin Neal, and there's a lot to like about Devin Neal, so I'm excited to play that interview for you. And then we're going to close out as we do with X factors, things we're watching for in this matchup. Going to be a lot of run game talk. I'm also going to hear Drew Brees and his take on the matchup. And as always, in the first segment, we're going to break down the injury report. Not much, going to be a short segment, which is good to hear and nice to talk about. Only a handful of injury questions, so we'll get through it pretty quickly. Right now, we're going to take a quick break, which gives you time to go hit that subscribe button wherever you are watching and or listening. Make sure to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Maybe share it with a friend. Maybe this Christmas you can say, hey, here is a podcast. That is my gift to you, is being more informed about the New Orleans Saints that you also love and cherish. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating or review, or wherever you get your podcasts. If they allow you to rate and review, please do that. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You can follow Steve Geller, my co-host, over at Steve Geller WWL. You can follow the show at Saints_pod. And as always, check out WWL.com for the latest news, notes, and analysis. Otherwise, stick around. We'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here, getting you ready for Week 15. That is 1-5. We are 15 weeks into an NFL season. The Saints have won 3 of those weeks. They have lost 10 of those weeks, and one of them, they couldn't hurt us. They didn't play. But this week is the second in a row where we get a rematch. Last week, it was the rematch between the Saints and the Bucs, and the Saints came out on the right end of it. The Bucs, who had a chance to kind of further their lead in the NFC South race, did not do that. The Saints took them down 24-20. Tyler Shough ran wild, and now they are in a dead heat with the Carolina Panthers, also 7-6, who are arriving at the Caesars Superdome and tend to not play well when they do that. That said, this is a Panthers team that has beaten the Packers. This is a Panthers team that has beaten the Rams. This is a Panthers team that has lost to the Browns 31-6. It's inexplicable. It makes no sense. I do not understand how this Panthers team has operated the way it has and has won the games it has and has lost the games it has. But hey, the NFL, it's weird. It's a weird game. And so let's dive into the injury report before we bring on Steve Geller and break down a few topics around the game. And so let's flash up the Saints half of the injury report to my left here. And it's not a long injury report. It is not an injury report with a lot of names on it that we did not expect to see. So let's start. Let's just go with the 2 players who missed both days of practice. That is Alvin Kamara, still listed with that knee injury he suffered against the Falcons. He's also listed with an ankle injury. He was a DNP on Wednesday and Thursday. Do not expect him to play, which will mean another heavy workload for Saints rookie running back Devin Neal, who was also listed with an abdomen injury. He's going to play. It's just, you're limited in those reps in practice. You're dealing with stuff. His status is really not in doubt. He's going to play. Either way, Kellen Moore was asked whether Alvin Kamara was expected to get back and play this year. He said yes. And if the answer was no, he'd be on injured reserve. The answer is yes. So whether it's week 16 or beyond, the expectation is he's going to get back out there. Either way, I do not anticipate that it's this week. So Expect to see a heavy workload, as I said, for Devin Neal, Audric Estime, maybe some Evan Hall worked in there, and obviously Taysom Hill is an option. The other DMP both days, offensive tackle Awesome Richards. He started last week against the Bucs at right tackle. He's dealing with a high ankle sprain. Those typically take some time. He's not going to play in week 15, which throws the attention onto Taliesin Fuaga, who's dealing with an ankle sprain. He had a high ankle sprain to the other ankle in the Rams game, worked back from that, played against the Dolphins, sprained his opposite ankle. So his lower legs are not in the greatest of shape right now. Either way, he's been limited each of the last 2 days. I expect them to try to get him out there. Is that the best idea? I don't know, but he's a tough guy. He's probably going to want to gut through it. The Saints need someone at right tackle. William Sherman filled in for the final few series against the Bucs. Thought he played reasonably well, but that's a big ask for William Sherman to go out there and start at right tackle. Now, as we're going to talk about as the show goes on, the Panthers are not a very effective pressure team. So it's going to be more of a question of, can you run block? Can you get downhill? And you're a much better team when you have Tali Fuaga on the field. So I expect him to try to go, but it's going to be one to watch. Obviously, we're recording this prior to Friday's practice, so we don't know what it's going to look like. We do not have the injury designations yet. I would expect him to be questionable, but I would expect him to play. Beyond that, Justin Reid, dealing with a knee injury, missed last week against the Bucs. He went out on the first play against the Dolphins. It was Terrell Burgess who got the lion's share of the reps against the Dolphins, but it was Jordan Howden who played the most reps against the Bucs. So I'd expect if Justin Reid can't play, it would be Jordan Howden again. But he was a limited participant in Thursday's practice, which means he's on the fringe of being questionable, right? He's on the fringe of being a game time decision. He didn't practice on Wednesday, but he was there. He has been active. He has been around the team. So I think the hope is probably that if he can't get back this week, you will at least have him for week 16 and beyond. And he's an important piece to that defense, particularly in the communication department. We already mentioned Devin Neal, abdomen injury. The only other guy on this list with an injury is Chris Rump II, which is new. I did not realize he was the second. Good for him. Good for Chris Rump Sr. I'm sure Chris Rump I is very proud of his son. Dealing with a wrist injury, he was upgraded to a full participant on Thursday, so you'd expect him to play. The only other name on here for the Saints, Devon Godchow, continues to get his Thursday rest days. That's just what it is. Like I said, not a ton of intrigue in the sense that these are all the injuries you kind of knew about. Obviously, you don't like to see the rookie running back dealing with an abdomen injury, but I don't expect it to be something that limits him. Flipping the page over. Not much to talk about really at all. The Panthers this is one of the first times all season that the Saints have had a longer injury report than their opponent. The Panthers have 5 players listed on their injury report. All 5 practiced in full on Thursday. The only 2 guys that I think really have a question is linebacker Claude Cherilus, cornerback J.C. Horn. They're going through the concussion protocol, so there's still going to be some steps they need to go through before they can get cleared to play. They have to see an independent neurologist. That's always kind of a question mark in terms of, if they're still exhibiting symptoms, they can't play. But being a full participant on Thursday is a pretty good indicator that they're going to get out there. The Panthers didn't actually practice on Wednesday. They held a walkthrough. So Thursday was the first time they actually got out into a practice. But otherwise, center Cade Mays, ankle injury, he was a full participant both days. Safety Latham Ransom, thumb injury, full participant both days. Linebacker Christian Roseboom, hip/hamstring injuries, full participant both days. So injuries aren't going to be something that really impacts this matchup, which is good because I'm tired of talking about injuries. I'm sure you are too. Crumple up the injury report, throw it out. Not going to be a big impact on this game. And so we're going to bring in Steve Geller and talk about it. Again, we'll also be playing you an in-depth interview that our own Mike Haas did with rookie running back Devin Neal. They sat down this week, went through a whole lot of stuff. So I'm excited to play that for you. And then we're going to come back with X Factors. As always, thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us. Really do enjoy putting these episodes together for y'all. So if y'all have any input, y'all have any feedback, make sure to let me know over on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You could also let us know on the video. If you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure to leave a rating, leave a review, let us know. Otherwise, stick around. We will be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak and bringing in Steve Geller. We're going to do another Steve and Stuff segment because this is how we decided to do things. Going to go in on a few topics here, getting ready for Saints hosting the Panthers. A rematch. Panthers are good, maybe, kind of, sort of. I don't buy it. We'll talk about it.
They're good for the NFC South, I guess.
Yeah.
Good enough.
They're good enough to at least force the Bucs to think about we might have to have a winning record to make the playoffs this year, which is something that, hasn't been the case for the last several years. But it's going to be a matchup. We're going to get into that. After this, we're going to throw to an interview that Mike Haas did with Devin Neal. Kind of like last week, we had Mike Haas chatting with Charlie Smith. This week, we have Mike Haas chatting with Devin Neal. It was an impromptu series that we've kind of fallen into, and I think it's working. So we're going to get to that final segment. We will have X factors, but first things first, and I only know this because you just brought it up. Let's talk about, okay, what's your least favorite take of the week? Let's dive into it. And let's do it. We'll both give you one. Steve, what's your least favorite? What's your worst take? What is the worst take you've heard this week around the Saints?
I'm just tired of hearing the fact that you can play spoiler again this week after taking down Tampa in Raymond James Stadium last week, and now they're tied with the Panthers team that's coming off the bye week. And do you guys have that extra juice, that motivation going against a Panthers team that's you can play spoiler for as well? And to me, like I told you going into the show, what the hell, man? This is an NFC South team. They're up for this every single year. It's the same thing over and over again. We know the records don't count. It just means more playing your division rivals.
Yeah, I think that's more for the fans than the players, right? Like, I get something extra out of making the Panthers fans feel sad, like, I get some extra juice out of that. Okay. I don't know if the players do. And to Tyler Shough's credit, he was asked that, and he was like, that's not really how I look at it. Like, I look at it as we go out there, we want to play a game. Like, you're not thinking about the record when you're walking out onto the field. You're thinking about, I'm a grown man going to play another grown man, a group of grown men in football, and I want to beat them.
Time to get a W, right?
Yeah, and so I do think like there is an element of playing spoiler, like, and it's fun to be that if it's the only thing you have, and that team and that fan base knows that they have a lot more to play for than you do, and they still can't get it done. I think there's some satisfaction that I get out of that, but I don't know if the players, like, I think it's almost like demeaning to think like, oh, we're the spoiler, but
I would think you get more up for the fact that you're going for a sweep of a division rival. To me, that's gives me more juice. It's like, you know what? This season has sucked a bit, but we can at least say we swept the Panthers.
I think it's more proving that you aren't what your record says you are, right? But no, I agree with you. I think that it's one of those things that we talk about as if it's tangible, but it's really not. It's like, it's a topic that we bring up and really exist. My least favorite take is that because the Panthers are 7-6, Bryce Young is good at football, and I'm sorry, he's just not. Bryce Young's not a good quarterback. He's proven that he can be a quarterback that can not lose you a game. He has not proven that he's a quarterback that can go win you a game, not without massive support from a defense that's forcing 3 interceptions. Like, he's a high-level game manager. I'll give him that. But like, look at all the numbers associated with him playing football, and use your eyes. It's so funny because like I maybe I have a warped understanding of like who Bryce Young is as a quarterback, but I just don't think you show up and lay that many duds that frequently and have that little to offer from a skill set perspective. I just don't see where is he good? Like, what does he do? What are the things you're looking at and saying that's it, he's him? Like, I don't buy it.
He doesn't even scare me in the escapability mobile factor either.
What does he do? Like, what is this 6'0" dude with no real legit arm strength, no real running ability do that makes you think that this guy, like the fact that he was the number 1 overall quick, boggles my mind, right? I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a hater, but I just don't see it. And I will not see it. I don't care if the Panthers come in and win this game. I still won't buy it. I don't think the Bucs are good. I don't think anyone in the NFC South is good, which is what makes season all the more frustrating because if the Saints, just like, and this has been the case for the last several years, the Saints just had a pulse over the first 10 games of the season.
Although, you know what, talking about takes or whatever that I don't like, I don't want to hear from folks complaining, what if Tyler Shough had just started in week 1?
No, that's such a revisionist. Like we know what the case was, right? Like we've had all these conversations.
Right.
And it's like pretending that he was going to look like he did in week 10 if you threw him out there in week 1 is just garbage. Now you can make the argument that, okay, maybe they should have started him earlier.
Yeah.
And that's why that Giants game, right? I think that Giants game, the game you won because the defense forced 5 interceptions, is kind of the linchpin of that argument of if they go out and lose to the Giants in that game with Jackson Dart starting, I think Tyler Shough's out there week 6 against the Patriots. Because they won that game, you kind of had to roll with it. Like you couldn't bench Spencer after that game. It would and you shouldn't have benched Spencer after that game. Winning that game kind of forced you to ride it out longer. And then you kind of went forward and things weren't going perfectly. And you eventually pulled the trigger in week 8. But I do think that's the argument is should you have benched Spencer out earlier and that Giants game prevented you from doing it? Because I think they probably would have. And
they were ready to pull that trigger.
Yeah, I mean, you're 0-5. You lose to a bad team like that at home, it would have done it for you. And who's to say if you just have force 2 turnovers instead of 5? But anyway, it is what it is. But no, we're getting onto it. And the doubters is funny to me. And the conversation about Tyler Shough has now become why was everyone so wrong? Like, what was it about this process that led so many people to dismiss this player so quickly? And there's arguments to be made that everyone's overreacting, and they probably are. I think that's what happens with young players is the needle is here, even though it should be here. Okay. The needle is here, even though it should be here. And then rather than go from here to here, we go from here to there. And then even though it's well, why? You're just doing the exact opposite of the process that led you astray in the first place. Right. And Louis Riddick is going to keep banging his drum,
Yeah.
Because that's what and it's funny because I think one of the reasons Mark Schlereth, who we talk to a lot, is so insistent on banging the Tyler Shough drum is because people want to be right first. That's right. How you get to claim I know what I'm talking about is you're able to say things prior to the consensus reaching that agreement and being right about it. And so when you do have that, you really want to hammer it home. It's how these guys make their money. And Lewis, to his credit, he was doing it way before everyone else. And part of the reason was he called several of Tyler Shough's games while he was playing for Louisville. If you go and you watch the highlights of Tyler Shough's Louisville games, a lot of times it's Louis Riddick on the call. So he got a good look at it. And I think that's really what it was. It was most people exposed. Most people who took the time to really dig into the tape and talk about, okay, what is the skill set here? What do you need to succeed at the NFL level and have here in a player? Most people came away saying, okay, I think there's something there. Now, was it a strong enough endorsement to be like, oh, we're taking this guy in the first round? Maybe not, but it was second round pick. Yeah, absolutely. Probably late first round.
Not just one negative combine clip at the that keeps getting played.
Well, that's the thing. And so many people were so ready to look at the age and look at the injuries and look at a couple kind of viral clips and just dismiss the guy out of hand that I think teams were a lot different. That's why when I was making my mock drafts and I was like, guys, I think the teams have this guy a lot higher just because the mock drafts are telling you he's a 4th round pick. Don't act like when the Saints take him in the 2nd round or trade up for him at the end of the 1st round that's a bad pick just because your mock drafts told you otherwise. And, Tyler did talk about this to an extent this week. So I do want to play that clip because I thought his answer was interesting. And I do appreciate the way he answers these types of questions because, a lot of times with quarterbacks, you just get kind of these cookie cutter answers. You don't really get insight into how that person is actually feeling. You just get kind of the cliche clips. And Tyler, to his credit, does answer these questions.
Advice that you would give to young players that are entering the draft next year?
Yeah, just don't listen to anything that anyone's saying as far as in the media. I mean, the mock drafts, all that stuff's crazy right now. We have, so many weeks left in the season. Stuff changes day to day. I mean, I remember I wasn't even on anybody's radar. I remember when I got picked, there was probably a lot of people upset. And it's just going to continue to change. I think all the guys coming out, it's going to, just go through your process, be yourself throughout the whole draft process, be authentic to who you are, about your journey, about your shortcomings, all that stuff. And I think it's going to work out the way it's supposed to.
How do you handle that when people are saying dumb and unfair things and kind of like not giving you a chance? And it's got to be frustrating. Like, how do you not allow that to affect you? And
there's the old saying where you don't, always look at it, and a lot of times I don't even really see it. But then there's always the reality of just life, and sometimes it can creep in. But for me, I've literally seen both sides of it, to where, you guys are going to be the same people, when and if I have a bad game, going to be saying that I had a bad game or I need to continue to be better. So I'm not going to blame you. But if I have a good game, you guys are going to be the same people that said I had a good game. So it's just part of it, I don't really have any personal indications with all that stuff. And for me, it's just my job is keep getting better and keep learning. So I just look at it and it is what it is. And I think, like I said before last week, the people in the locker room, the people in the building, I really want to earn their respect.
I think some people have different philosophies on like bulletin board materials, stuff like that. Are you the type that would like use that as motivation, or do you kind of have your own motivation? Like, how do you kind of view that?
That's a good question, because I think the answer is both. I think anybody would, I'm a human. I want to prove people wrong. I want to prove doubters wrong. But at the same time, like, that's not why I'm playing. I play because I freaking love it. I love to go out there and practice and hang out with the guys and just go eat and play football, and that's why I'm doing it. But there's a human element of it as well. So I think when you can kind of hone both of those in to where you're not, trying to go, crazy as far as your play and trying to reflect that. I've been certain points in my career where you feel like you have to go prove with the world, and that's not necessarily a healthy mindset either. So it's a little bit of both.
I use that clip for a sports report on WWO when he's like, I just freaking love it.
No, and I think it's important, right? Because I think there's some level of, I want that little extra juice, so I'm gonna take these idiots' comments and use it. It's like, all right, I'll show them. But then, like, what happens when people aren't saying that stuff about you anymore? Like, do you still can you still do that, right? And I remember stories. I've told the stories before, like Michael Jordan making up things that people said about him, just and in his head convinced it like he's a pathological liar to himself, and he's just like, well, this is how I'm gonna do it. Like, you can't rely on that all the time, because at a certain point, if you are good and these people were wrong, well, they'll admit it, right? And then what do you do? So I do think there has to be some level of, do you love the game? Do you want to prove people right as much as you want to prove those people wrong? And so we'll see. And like, there's a lot of time left for Tyler to have a terrible game, and suddenly that needle swings right back the other direction. But I just think his head.
He could have an awful game like Stafford did against his Panthers defense.
Right. And I just think his mentality, like his head's in the right place. And I appreciate that. The other thing that I think people, and this is a good example of like the scouting process on him was terrible, because all the time I heard about how he was like a statue in the pocket. And it's just funny because I think, and I asked him about this, I'm not going to play the clip, but like we talked about this throughout the scouting process. And when he came in, like, he played a certain way at Louisville because they were trying to protect him and give him a healthy season and whatever. But like, you go back to Texas Tech and Oregon, he was running, right? And then like you watch the game the other night or the game the other day in Tampa, and it's like, wow, that's an athlete out there, right? Like, you don't run for 34-yard touchdowns and outrun people unless you got that athleticism. I asked Devin Neal about it, and I was like, were you surprised? He was like, no, I see that all the time. He does that in practice constantly. But no, and I mean, so I think there's just a lot to Tyler's game that you continue to improve, and I think that's why people are excited. Just like to have hope at the quarterback position, right? And you can see it, you can hear it in the players, you can hear it from the locker room, and that's why even at 3-10, you suddenly start to feel like there's some hope, because when you have a quarterback, there's hope. When you don't have a quarterback, there's just not a lot of hope, right? Like, Colts are turning into Phillip Rivers, like literally old man River right now. God, did you see his press conference?
Yeah, he's been out a little bit.
A little bit. Even Kellen Moore's out here making jokes about it. Like, because he was asked about the age and whatever, and he was like, well, the Colts are about to play 44-year-old Phillip Rivers, so I think Tyler's going to be just fine at 26.
That was definitely a big one, Jeff. You had mentioned it too with the scouting reports and coming out and the age factor. And still a lot of people cannot get over the fact that he's 26 years old.
If Tyler was 23, he's a top 10 pick probably.
Oof.
He's 25 and you just dismiss it out of hand. And that's stupid. That's bad analysis, right? The same way it's like, oh, he's an injury risk because of all the injuries. And then you look and it's like, oh, it was a broken collarbone. Like, it's just bad luck. He broke his leg on a hip drop tackle. Like, that's bad luck. Those bones heal, you're back. And like the same people did not have anywhere near the level of scrutiny for Michael Penix, who has like no ACLs in his knees and was like 1 year younger coming out. He's a top 10 pick. So, obviously he had more success his final year at Washington, but he had a very similar college career to Tyler. Either way, it is what it is. Like, we don't need to talk it to death. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it, but it's just kind of funny to see how this goes. And, if Tyler came out and just had nothing, suddenly we would be like, well, we're drafting a quarterback.
Right.
So, and we'll find out over the final 4 games whether like this is kind of a red herring, this is a mirage, or this is something that you're going to go into the offseason and be really excited about how this looks coming back. So let's talk about that a little bit. Other than Tyler Shough, we talked to Tyler Shough to death. What are the players on either side of the ball that you really want to see kind of like break out, that you want to see build into next year? If you had to pick one player that you want to see break out over these final 4 games, who would it be? Other than the quarterback.
Man, see that? Yeah, that's tough because I'm either going to go with running back or receiver here. I'm going to go with the running back in Devin Neal, just because we're going to see him as Alvin. We don't know still how much Calvin Kamara is going to be out. So he's the lead dog right now. No Kendra Miller too. So you're getting a great look at this running back who I think a lot of people, it's kind of like a Tyler Shough almost, where I don't want to say slept on, but fell all the way to the 6th round. And people are going, wow, this guy doesn't look like a 6th rounder right now.
He's just a solid running back, man. And we're going to hear a lot from Devin in the next segment with talking to Mike Haas. Like, he's an easy guy to root for a lot of reasons. I've chatted with him a few times. Like, he's got a really good head on his shoulders.
Yeah, the guy like he reminds me of. That's kind of reminds me a lot of Kamara, not the game, but the mind for the game.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's part of the reason you bring guys in like that, because you know that they aren't going to be overwhelmed by what's being asked of them. And like, exactly. Again, I've talked about this before. Like, you're asking a rookie running back to do a lot, to take a lot of quarterback, and he's handled it. He's handled it all, and he seems to just be getting better as you go. I don't know what his ceiling is. He's not the most dynamic athlete in the world, but he does seem to just have like that extra gear, and he can make people miss. He can run in between the tackles. The guy I compare him to that I've decided is who he is as a pro running back is Chris Carson.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
And the reason, there's a lot of reasons. Like, you go and you look up the measurables. I think Chris Carson might have been like a half-inch taller, maybe a little heavier, but I think Devin can bulk up a little bit. He has got a solid frame. Not like incredibly explosive, but have enough explosion, and they can catch the ball. They can run between the tackles. The Chris Carson only had a 4-year NFL career, but he had 2,000-yard rushing seasons in there. He was really good during that period. And the other reason I compare those guys is because, very similarly to Devin Neal this year, Chris Carson was a 7th round pick. And that was that 2017 draft. Chris Carson was in the same draft as Alvin Kamara. And there was a lot of running backs in that draft. It was really deep, kind of like this year. Like, there was a lot of really good running backs in this draft. Maybe not top-end running backs the way you would see behind Ashton Genty, and like Amarian Hampton was a 1st rounder. But then you just see like 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. You got the Travian Hendersons, Quinshon Judkins. Like, a lot of really good running backs filtered in, to the point that a running back that probably should have been a 4th round pick and Devin Neal got pushed all the way to the 6th round because all these teams already had running backs, right? And that's kind of what happened to Chris Carson that year. So, I think that, you look at that comparison, and I think it's who he is. Now, do I want him to be a bell cow? Probably not. Like, I'd probably want to pair him with a more dynamic guy. But I think he has a role for sure. I'm still on Chris Olave, man. Like, I want to see Chris Olave and Tyler Shough really click.
I get it.
At least once. because I'm still waiting on that like blow up game, right? Like we've seen, it's been a solid year for Chris Olave. He's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver. He already has 5 touchdowns. He'll probably have another 2 or 3 by the end of the year. So you're going to be talking about, his first 2 seasons in the NFL. He had 1,000 yards. He was kind of on that upward trajectory. And then last year, and so it's good to see him bounce back. I really need to see one game where the vision of like, this is a dynamic wide receiver 1 comes to the forefront before I would feel comfortable committing a 3-year, $80 million contract to the guy. Right? Because I think that's what you're looking at. Like, I don't think you're going to end up paying him at the top of the wide receiver market, but you're going to have to be in that range of like high 20s, maybe like a Terry McLaurin deal, especially if you can say, hey, Chris, like, we want to pay you, but we don't feel comfortable giving you this 4-year contract with all these guarantees. Why don't we keep it on the shorter end? That way, you'll have a chance to prove it. You come up for a new contract, and then you still can get that massive deal. And that gives us some protection, gives you some protection. So that's the guy for me is Chris Olave, because I think they're going to have to make a decision on that contract. I don't think you want him going into an option year without a contract. And I like Chris Olave. Like I want to pay him, but do you pay him as a wide receiver 1 or not is the question. Right. I need to see it. I need to see a game or two that shows me that him and Shough can combine to be a quarterback wide receiver 1 duo. And they've been really close, right? Like that game last week, the refs just didn't see the hold because they didn't call it. But like that game could have very easily started with a 50-yard touchdown the first play of the game. Should have been pass interference, right? You had the 2 interceptions each of the last 2 weeks. That was really just like a read play. And, you'd like to think that with a full off season with these guys working together that you can really get it down, and those plays will end up being big plays. But, it's hard to know until you kind of see it play out a couple times.
The last miss, drop, whatever you want to call it, in the end zone that could have been a game winner hurt me for sure on the way I felt about Olave. And I'm still waiting too. I'm hoping this offense just in general, like, down the stretch, can we ignite more offense to get into the end zone, just because we've just been touchdown starved this season.
Yeah, and I've been happy with what I've seen out of Vele. Like he's exactly what I need him to be. So I'm okay. Like I'd love to see him have a couple more big games, but I'm okay. Like I'm happy with what I've seen from him. I need to know Chris is going to be that guy. Otherwise, I'm starting to look for that guy, right? One other guy, and I want to play this clip, and we'll talk about it briefly, and then move ahead. Cam Jordan, the Camster. He's currently leading the team in sacks, 6.5. Kind of a bounce back season for him. Definitely a bounce back season for him. This is what Cam said when he was asked, like, hey, do you start thinking about, like, do you keep playing beyond this season? Like, what are you looking at? This is his answer to that question.
Think of like seeing this rebuild through and being here longer than maybe some expect?
I don't know how to answer that. It's longer than some people would expect. I mean, I've been here for 15 seasons now. How much longer?
I don't know. How much longer?
I mean, at this point, it's all about how I feel. Personally, after the season, I'll defer to my wife first before I can think about myself. I always say, when we first got together, I was like, look, I'm going to play 12, 13 years in the league, and after the 10, I said, look, we're going to check back in 13. We still good? And at 13, I said, we're going to go to 15. Are we still good? Now, I got to go back to the house. I got to make sure that everything's in order to continue playing. But physically speaking, I feel phenomenal. I don't know if you've been watching. My MPH is being clocked here. I'm looking great. I think that when it comes down to how much longer I can play, that's between probably Nicky Jordan and then Jesus, and Nicky Jordan, then what the Saints want to do. You know how petty we get with contracts.
What are we looking at MPH
Let him play, Nicky.
I like that he initially said it's up to Nicky, then Jesus, and he was like, "No, what? We'll give Jesus first dibs on this." I think Nicky was probably like, "Yeah, as the longer I can keep Cam from being at the house all the time is like I already have 4 kids. I don't need a 5th."
Earlier too, when you talk about just love of the game, I don't think I've met my career covering football. I haven't met somebody that's loved the game more than Cam.
No, and he's such a good presence in the locker room, right? Like, and so that's my question is like, if you can bring Cam back on a similar deal that you did this year with a bunch of incentives, and if you produce, you get paid. If you don't, then the team can pull some money back. Like, if you can get him back on that type of contract, would you not be trying to bring Cam Jordan back for year 16? Like I get it, he's old and he is what he is, but like he's got 6.5 sacks. He's leading the team in sacks. Like. And he's a good run player. This is like you put a tight end on that guy. He's breaking him down. He's making a play in the backfield. Like, I don't know. Who are you adding that's going to give you more as kind of a depth piece at this point?
For the man he is and the player, he still can be on the field in a rotational role. He's not your every down dude. And I don't know. I think this team, Cam Jordan is black and gold. He is a Saint. He says he wants to stay here. And yeah, it would be one of those crimes to see him suiting up somewhere else. But I mean, I understand it too. I understand the economics of it all with this one. If he is asking too much, what the team's willing to put out.
Yeah, and that's going to be the question. It's like, are you willing to take another deal like this one and just to say, let's keep running it back? And it's like, we'll pay. If you get another 6 sacks and you get those incentives, great.
We'll pay it.
If you don't, we're like, and that's the question is, what's the role? What would the role be? And how much, but like I think the role he's serving this year was kind of a situational player. If he's my top edge rusher, I feel like I'm in trouble. If he's my fourth edge rusher, I mean, what are you losing there? And plus, he's a guy that you feel like we can bring in a top. We can draft an edge rusher, and like that's the guy I want him working with. Like that's the example I want set for him in the locker room. And you kind of go from there. Like the Carl Granderson is like a guy that I maybe look at trading, right? Like something like that. And that becomes a numbers game if you do draft a guy and then you have Chase Young, Carl Granderson, rookie that you need to play, and Cam. But you mentioned the economics of it. I do want to mention, like, so keep in mind this upcoming season, you imagine Taysom Hill is going to be gone. So that would be a pretty large dead cap hit that's coming in. DeMario Davis is kind of the same question. Still a guy playing at a high level. Do you keep him around? If not, it's a pretty big dead cap hit that's coming in. And you have the Derek Carr dead cap hit that, you maybe weren't expecting initially prior to him suddenly retiring. Now the bulk of that dead cap hit is coming in. You're clearing that in 2026. And so that does become a little tricky to navigate financially. If you make the decision to extend Cam Jordan 1 year and do whatever you need to make those numbers work, that's an $18 million dead cap hit that you're pushing to 2027, which I know you don't want to keep pushing that down the line, but spreading it out so that you're eating a lot of it next year, it allows you a little bit more flexibility. And then from that point on, like the cap table is free and clear, guys. Like you're not paying a quarterback. You're clearing some of these older veteran cap hits, and suddenly you have one of the cleanest cap tables in the league. So like, I know people are going to say you're kicking the can, but in this case, that just gives me operational flexibility, especially if I come out of this season feeling like Tyler Shough is the guy and I can go and like, I don't know who's going to be available on the free agent market, but if there's a guard that, I maybe have to overpay for a little bit, but it's like really important for me to shore up that position and I just don't see it in the draft.
Right.
Then that gives you the ability to bring that guy in. Right. So I don't know. Like, I think Cam Jordan, if the numbers work and he's willing to play ball with the team, you did hear him say like the team could be petty with contracts, but they definitely can be. And it means he doesn't retire into some other team's uniform too. I don't know. So that's my spiel. Because I think he's showed that like without Todd Grantham serving as like an anchor for his mental well-being, still got something to offer. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's loving the new system with Staley, and Staley's loving having a guy like Cam around.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like Brandon Staley likes Cam Jordan. Like they work together well. And so I'm sure he would, I don't know if he'd be banging the table, but if you asked him, be like, yeah, I'd love to keep
Hell
Cam
yeah,
around.
keep him, right.
So like if he had another like 1 sack season and he was playing too much and just wasn't delivering, that would be one thing. And plus like, I don't know if another team is going to be falling over themselves to pay Cam either. And he's going to understand that like I think he's gotten to the point where he's a Hall of Famer right now. I just don't know how quickly he would get in. if he has another season with like 5 sacks and suddenly you're talking about a guy in the top 15 all time on the sacks list, then he might go from being like, okay, you're on the ballot for a while, and then you get into being like a first ballot guy. So that's just something to consider. Either way, anything else you want to hit before we move on?
No, I could see Cam, though, like last year of his career, maybe going to play where his dad played with the Vikings if he had that kind of affinity. But man, it would just be weird.
Too cold.
Too cold. At least it's in a dome.
I don't think he wants to live anywhere it's cold. Like, I've talked to him about this. Like, he said the Browns could offer him like a $200 million contract. He was not going to play for the Browns. It's just not happening. Like, he just does not want to live in cold weather. And I get it. I agree. And I think
angry over the Jordan Cameron kerfuffle.
He's mad that DeAndre Jordan isn't playing more for the Pelicans. Either way.
Nice.
Yeah. Him and Tyler Shough were hanging out at the Pelicans game this week. And man, Tyler Shough, I don't know what his PR team is doing, but they picked the perfect time. He has the great game. He beats the Bucs. He's out there kissing babies and giving away bikes, sitting courtside at the Pelicans, hanging out with
puppies too.
Yeah. He's cuddling puppies. Like, he's done more
no wrong.
He's done better PR in a week than Derek Carr was able to do in 2 years. If Derek Carr did an event with puppies, we would be like, somebody save those puppies from Derek Carr.
Did he adopt any, or did he just visit?
Yeah, he's just using those puppies for PR, which is same thing Tyler Shough's doing, but we like Tyler, and Tyler loves dogs. So it makes more sense.
Yeah, his pup was a draft day star as well.
Murph dog. Murph. Don't let me leave, Murph. Anyway. All right, who dat? Go Saints. We're getting ready for week 14, week 15? Week 15? Week 15. Saints hosting the Panthers. We're gonna hit a break here and come back. Mike Hoss with a long interview with Saints rookie running back Devin Neal. Really interesting guy. I implore everyone to listen to it because he's going to be a guy that you are a big fan of, especially what he does on the field, but like also when you hear his background and his story and how he approaches the game. So great stuff. Again, that's Mike Hoss with rookie running back Devin Neal. It's going to be a slightly trimmed down version of the interview. So if you want more, it's like a 45-minute interview. I cut it down to about 20, 25 minutes. So if you want the full thing, you can go check it out at WWL.com. But after that, we're going to come back, close out the episode with X factors for the matchup with the Panthers. What are we looking for? What do the Saints need to do to piss off the Panthers again?
Yeah.
Which I really hope they do, because that would really solidify my Bryce Young take. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to make sure my takes are right.
Well, yeah, you don't want to make yourself wrong.
Yeah, I don't want to be.
That's what we have wives for.
All right, I'll let that one ride. Who dat? Go Saints. We'll be right back.
Thrilled to have Devin Neal, the 6th-round pick out of Kansas, rookie running back, got his first NFL touchdown this week against Tampa. Man, it's got to be just a thrill for what this has been for you this year, because maybe it didn't, you probably had it in your mind what it might be like as a rookie behind Alvin and Kendre, but here we are in the last 3 weeks, you've averaged like 50 plays a game, so it must be a thrill.
Yeah, absolutely. You kind of go into this with not necessarily the expectation not to play, but, to do whatever it takes to get on the field and, sit back, learn, be a sponge, and continue to get better and continue to just get more reps out there. But, being kind of thrown into the fire, it's been awesome. I live to play this game. It means a lot to me. So just being able to play in the NFL, playing significant snaps, it means a lot to me for sure.
What is the significant difference? And I know somewhat the answer, but as opposed to in the first, 5 weeks of the year where Alvin and Kendre were healthy, you're probably on scout team, as opposed to these last few weeks in practice, running with the first team. I mean, there must be a significant difference in those two aspects.
Yeah, I mean, kind of, but mentally I kind of didn't want to picture it in that way. I wanted to picture it in the way that, I'm preparing that I'm going to play this week. And I think that's helped me get to this point to where I'm prepared and, haven't really missed a beat when I'm on the field now is I prepared myself in a manner that I'm going to play in the game, and that's in the film room, that's on the field, that's in the weight room, and just staying ready because ultimately, I know how this game works. I know about my position. It's one of the most grueling ones out there, so I can kind of understand how this may go. So I prepare myself mentally in that aspect.
I was going to use this a little later in the show, but you've already kind of talked about it, which is the preparation and the readiness. And this was a compliment yesterday talking about protection. And, usually with a rookie, that's the biggest concern. With Devin, that's the least of our concerns. He comes in ready, always been ready. In fact, his ability to pick up blitzes and be ready is why he's been on the field so much. I love the way he runs. I love the extra juice, which already tells you right there who's talking, and the energy that he has. And that is, of course, Kellen Moore. He loves the word juice.
He does.
But that speaks volumes because protection is about knowledge first. It's about anticipation. Yep. It's also about desire. Like I don't want to be out back there blocking Vita Vea, 347 pounds. But it's always been your mentality, right? I mean, you must have known early on this was going to be your way onto the field.
I've heard that multiple times throughout my college career. Like, hey, you gotta. Could you get better? This is what they look for in the NFL. And, early in my career, freshman, it's like, well, whatever. That's time from now. But, it's like continued throughout my college career, I really wanted to hone in on that because the people that have had the longest careers as a running back are those who can stay on the field, one, and be healthy, and two, can pass protect and then do it all. So I really pride myself on being a very versatile back. And, I really pride myself on being a really great pass protector. It's taken a lot of work to get to that point. It's not easy. And like you said, it takes a lot of different factors. But at the end of the day, it's about a 1-2 mentality. And my 1-2 is to protect the quarterback and do whatever it takes to stay ahead of the sticks and to win the game. And so that kind of goes along with my mindset when it comes to pass protection.
That's kind of where I was going when I talked about the anticipation, preparation, and desire. Is there an ABC in that realm?
Yeah. I think knowledge is definitely first on there. Like you kind of have to know tendencies, you have to know looks, and you kind of have to and then anticipation kind of follows right behind that. You kind of have to see leverage and, the safety's rotated over. There's a high probability this happened, and then being quick enough to react to that because, obviously linebackers who are usually going against or nickels, whoever they may be, they're coming from far away depth. They're building a lot of speed. These guys are strong guys, typically bigger. So you have to beat them to the punch. You have to build some speed yourself to be able to withstand that type of hit. So if you're sitting back there, that's where I can see a lot of guys struggle in that realm is they're trying to wait for that instead of attacking that. And then, if a guy's moving faster than you, it's just inevitable that he's going to be able to get through you. So that's kind of my 1, 2, 3 steps in how I think about pass protection for sure.
First drive, you had a 3-yard run early, and then the second 3-yard run was the touchdown. It was close, and we can't always tell until we see the replay, and then we see the ball crossing the line, and your hip is off the ground by about 2 inches. Yeah. So that's what we have to see with 10 cameras and a freeze frame. But for you, under that pile, did you know right away?
I did not know right away, and that's kind of why I had a delayed, reaction. I was ready to get back on the ball and get in there for the first time. That's kind of my mindset at that point. But I wasn't really ready at that point, no. But, when they finally called it, it was really a sigh of relief for me, that it was almost like another, check mark for me is like, yeah, I made it. Yeah, I'm starting. Yeah, I'm playing significant snaps. But now I'm making impact plays. Now I'm getting into the end zone. And, it just kind of wrapped up for me that I belong here, and it was a big milestone for me. But, I'm not the type to really settle in on, past victories or stuff like that. I move on pretty quickly because I know that you got to stay consistent in this game and you got to continue to find ways to get better.
Have the ball, place for the ball? I assume, did they give you that ball, that a wet old mop of a ball?
They did. I did get the ball. They're going to paint it up for me and, decorate it however they do. So, it's going to definitely be framed up. That's a special one for sure.
He had 19 carries, 70 yards, 3.7 average, the 1 touchdown, the long of 21, which might not sound like much, but that's an explosive run. That's only the 3rd explosive run this team has had. And 3.7 doesn't sound like much, but I know you're going to tell me that because I sit with Deuce, the running back, and a 4-yard run in the NFL is freaking hard.
Yeah, it's definitely hard. We have, and I mean that run defense from the Buccaneers, it's one of the best in the league. So we knew going in, we knew the weather conditions. We knew what it was going to be. We knew it was going to rain all day. We knew it was going to be nasty, and we knew we were going to have to get downhill on these guys and really just kind of overpower them. And we knew we had that challenge. And, us really getting going in the second half with the run game, I truly believe won us the game because it was going to come down to whoever was able to establish the line of scrimmage. And, for us to average, 3.7, 4 yards a carry and stay ahead of the sticks and then allow them not to have to pressure, which they love to do, and stay in third and manageables, I think it was all huge and it was all a corresponding effect on how the game went.
You've always been a solid receiver. This year, 18 targets, 16 receptions. That's 89%, 100 yards, 4 first downs, long of 18. None bigger probably than that 14-yarder on 3rd and 8, where you were just, I think Tyler went, wow!
Yeah.
He found you. You had to have been, it was a big play.
Yeah, for sure. I think as me and Tyler kind of just have that connection at this point where, he's kind of looking for me on those checkdowns when he doesn't see anything downfield. And, I was just glad I was able to make a play for him. I knew how important that play was to the drive. And I'm pretty sure he scored the next play.
He did for the next play, 13 yards.
So, that was a really big moment in the game, and whatever it takes, that's who I am. I'm a whatever it takes type of guy to, get this team wins, get this team success. And whatever that comes from, I'm willing to do.
Alvin Kamara, simply the best. I mean, he doesn't talk a lot. When he does talk, man, it's like people listen. I'm just wondering what you've learned from him significantly, either something he said or it's just something you're watching that you've picked up from him.
Ooh, I mean, I'll start with the first thing you said is, when I first got in here, it wasn't like an intimidation thing for me. But it was kind of like a wow moment. And, I noticed that he was really quiet and kind of just reserved. But, I've gotten really close with him, these past, because really since, the unfortunate timing of Kendre's injury, I've really got to spend more time with Alvin and just really kind of just pick his brain and just be a sponge, honestly, because he is one of the greatest to play this game at this position. And, why wouldn't I take that opportunity, and there's not necessarily anything specific, but, I think me and him are wired a lot the same. And I don't think people really understand how smart he really is. And especially about this game, not just about this game, but his off the field things he does business wise. There's so many things that, I can pick and choose from that if I just do just maybe 25% of that, I'm just be much better at this. But to be quite honest with you, I don't think there's really anyone on this planet that can do what he does, especially this late in his career. There's things I've seen from him where I'm just like, all you can do is really just shake your head and you're just like, oh my, and but as much as I can, I try to get on the same page with him of what he's seeing, how he's able to anticipate cuts, what he's seeing in different coverages when we're running routes. I do think a lot of the things he said has helped me become a better I'm not running a ton of different routes per se, but being able to understand when I'm out in space, how to be able to handle certain situations and make the most out of the yardage there too. So I think he's definitely helped in that aspect. It's just been really cool. It's been a dream of mine, even before the draft. My one hope was, I got into a room with someone who really just had experience and who's really good in this game. But, I got one of the best. So I got really lucky and blessed in that aspect.
Born in Lawrence, went to Lawrence High School. I think your mom said initially you were kind of looking around, maybe travel a little bit, and maybe you see some, get out of Lawrence and see Texas, Oregon, some of the teams that might be getting some pub. Tell me about your siblings that you have.
Yeah, so I have an older brother, older sister, and a little sister as well. So,
what are their names?
We got Brene, we got Brandon, and we got Embry.
And your younger sister is, I guess, probably 10 years.
She's 10 now. She's 10.
She was going into kindergarten
when I first started in college. Yep.
And that was a factor. You wanted to you decided, you know what, I'm a Midwest guy. I want to stay in the Midwest. I don't want to leave. Your family is your escape. And your youngest sister, I want to say daughter.
You're good.
Your youngest sister, you wanted to be around during those years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like you said, his family's always been so important to me. I grew up in a tight-knit family, very large family, huge family. So it was really cool. And for me, it was just really important to just be able to be in her life. Not just her, obviously, all my family. But, I know how, I was at that age, really, because most of my life I was basically an only child, Like I spent time with my older siblings a little bit, but they were kind of down the road. So I didn't really.
So there's gaps, right? We have older, and then you.
Yeah, we have
gaps.
We have different fathers.
Right.
So
Frida
or different
and,
mothers. Different mothers. We have different mothers.
Frida and Ryan are.
That's my parents.
Right.
And they have a different mother. So there's a difference there. I didn't spend a ton of time with them. So for me, it almost felt like I was only childish. And really, when Embry came in, she obviously lived with us, and so I was building connection with her, and I just really wanted to stay around them a lot, and build on that and have her have that feeling. And I think that helped a lot of our relationship, because she wouldn't, if I would have went somewhere else, she wouldn't really understand what an older brother really felt like. You know what I'm saying? So that was cool. It was a big blessing for me to be able to stay home and achieve all the things I was able to achieve, and also have that same family aspect.
Growing up, who was the running back who you kind of emulated or wanted to be? Or
the reason why I wore number 4 was, guys like TJ Yeldon and Dalvin Cook. Those are my two guys, really, for sure. But I couldn't emulate my game off DeAnthony Thomas. He was another guy. He's just too fast. That's not my game. But those are really 3 guys that I just kind of looked and just enjoyed watching. Nothing too specific. I can go into older guys like Adrian Peterson, the usual like that. Obviously, I was a big Bo Jackson fan just because of my baseball background as well. So I would probably say those guys for sure.
It's the chip. I think there's 2 things. It's the chip, and it's also, I read that you want to make the people that love me proud, and that's more than your family, because you grew up in Lawrence. That's that's a bigger group. So it's both of those things.
Yeah, it's definitely both those things. And yeah, I mean, just there's been so many people along the way that has helped me in so many different aspects. Growing up, I played multiple sports, and there's been so many different families that I've encountered that welcomed me in like another set of parents. And those are people I'll never forget. I'll always, when I go back home, those are people I'm always going to reach out to go hang out with. And I have such a tight-knit friend group as well that, I'm still talking to them almost daily today. And I don't know how many people have those same experiences. And so I feel like, not that I owe them, but, I take a lot of pride in them to see that they helped me get to this point. And
they enjoy in your success as well,
absolutely.
doing it together.
Absolutely. And it was really cool to be able to get on my phone after the game this past week and all those same people reaching out to me and, congratulating me and just sending me heartfelt messages. And, that's another part of why I play this game too, is to be a representation of them and to show others, especially the little ones back home, that they can make it, from that area. Like there's not an earth-shattering number of people going to the NFL, playing in the NFL from Lawrence, Kansas. And, there's a lot of kids there looking for, who that person they can look up to be. And, I'm just glad that I can be a person for them.
Doing my, prep for this, I started at, Pro Football Reference, which took me to College Football Reference, which then took me to Baseball Reference. Played at Kansas, some, and that was an important thing for you out of high school. You were really good and as a two-sport athlete. And your coach, Steve Rampy, I believe, your baseball, or is he your baseball coach?
He was my football coach.
He's your football coach. And he said, look, let's just don't tell him about the two-sport. Let's see who wants you to play football, and then we'll tell him about the two-sport. And you're like, no. I'm going to be honest with them off the front, and I want to play two sports. And it might have cost you some bigger offers somewhere. Who knows? But that's just kind of who you are. And you did it in 22 and played. So I don't know how much you ended up playing, but where was the decision to play, and where was the decision to go, you know what? Football's my game.
Yeah, for me, honestly, growing up, I thought baseball was going to be my sport. I honestly thought until I got to college that I was a better baseball player, and I think many others would tell you that too.
Outfielder and pinch hitter?
I was just outfielder. Yeah. Outfielder. I hit third, really. I let off a lot throughout my life. And there was just something different about baseball that I just really enjoyed, and I always thought my calling was to be a baseball player, and so that's why it was really important to me to want to play both, because it wasn't just let me just walk on baseball, see if they'll take me. And every kind of visit, every talk I had, kind of hard set on that, like, I want to play baseball. So if that's not for you guys, and then that's not for you guys. And so it did deter a lot of teams. I do think I would have had a lot of other opportunities for football for sure. But, ultimately, Kansas, they offered me for baseball first.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And then football came along second, which I knew the coaching staff closely on both ends. So I knew they truly wanted me for both. There was a few other teams that truly wanted me for both as well. Then there was some teams, high recruited in baseball, highly recruited in football. So it was a weird mix. It was a weird recruiting, kind of cycle, but ultimately led me to Kansas because I knew they wanted me for both, and they had a plan for me to play both. And then we got to my sophomore year. I played a little bit my freshman year. I didn't, I was still behind some really good players who ended up getting drafted pretty high.
It was 21?
Yeah, in 21. But I had a few at-bats, played decent amount, then got to, right after that year, I really just had to assess, how I was feeling, body-wise, and, where I thought I was going to, project in the future. And, I came to the realization that, I think it was time for me to choose. And, then that season, my freshman year, I got thrown into the fire, starting by week 4, and finished the season with like 700 or so yards.
Yep,
and
9 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I was like, that was a decent season, but, I still feel like there's more. And, when still playing baseball, I didn't feel that same passion as I once felt. And so, that's when I decided to, fall into my faith and just choose football. And, that was really the first time in my life where I've trained for just one sport in the off season. I've never before trained or been able to train for an off season for another sport because I was playing multiple sports. And so that's when the jump happened and where I really progressed into the running back I am today. And, I think that was the biggest blessing in disguise for me that I just didn't understand at first. And, I have no regrets about that decision.
Everything for you has pretty much been a progression. When you look at your carries since week 8, 0, 3, 4, 7, 14, 19. When you look at same thing even in college, I mean, it was kind of boom, 700, 1,000. You kind of messed me up because in your senior year, you made like 40 yards less. Yeah. And you had 16 touchdowns in both your junior and senior year. But for the most part, it has been a progression. I want to read you something that I read. This is back in 2021. You had just kind of started football, but you'd shown enough at that point, and the article says he's ready to be the steady running back at Kansas, not just from what you've seen, but because of all the work that came before the talent, all the mental makeup, that he is ready to bypass the part of the developmental timeline that requires many college athletes to sit and wait. That's pretty impressive. You're a freshman, had played a few games, but it's the and nobody sees it. Nobody cares. It's the hard work that you do in the film room and on the after practice that allowed that statement to be written.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, and it's It's weird. It's weird that you even mentioned that because, now that kind of same things. I'm basically in the same position now as I was my freshman year.
Because you're who you are. It's
just who I am.
It's who you are, right?
And I've always prided myself. I've never changed for anybody. I've always had this type of mentality where you just got to work for everything you want. And I put in a ton of work, and I sacrifice time to get better at this game, to understand this game, to be prepared. And that's what's led me to this point. It's not, yes, it's the athletic attributes as well, but I'm not dumb either. I understand there are faster guys. There's maybe stronger guys. But I know one thing that I'll do is I will be the most versatile guy. I will work to become better at certain things. And so that's where I get that from. That's how I've been able to keep progressing and keep getting better and keep finding ways to get better even through experience,
Going through the process, you have been what was called back then, after the draft, the steal of the draft, to go 184th, 6th. What was your relationship like when you first met Joel Thomas at the Senior Bowl? And maybe you know him before. I don't know if there's a better human out there than Joel Thomas. I've known him for a long time. It's his second stint here.
Yeah.
Just a quality human being. What was that relationship like?
Yeah, I mean, my first time meeting was at the Senior Bowl, and I remember our first meeting with him, and I'm like, man, this guy's fired up. Like, he's barking like a dog, and we're like, what are we getting ourselves into? But the funny thing is, like, that's who he is. He brings juice, he brings energy, and that's kind of how I am too, bringing passion. I'm just glad that, because I didn't know really what to expect. I heard things about the NFL and coaches and things that probably aren't even true. I heard it from voices that aren't in NFL circles, and they're like, yeah, those guys are in it for themselves, and they're thinking about the next paycheck. And I'm like, well, I hope that's not my experience, and the crazy thing is about with JT is, after I knew we had some form of connection. I knew we related to each other. It was just one of those things that you could just feel, right? And I knew that he liked what I brought to the table. But after the Senior Bowl, I did not talk to him or anyone on the Saints until that call on draft day. And so, I just think that connection that we built and what he's able to see, that how I'm able to process and things like that was so important, and that we are able to connect and see eye to eye and certain things like that too. So, like you said, though, he's a great guy. He pushes me to get better each and every day, and it's pretty cool to just be in a room with him for sure.
It was a huge, heavy running back draft.
It was. Yeah.
Still, is that a part of the chip on your shoulder? You must
Definitely.
have felt that you would have gone
for
way
sure.
Before
and
184.
Yeah, I mean, I was told I was going way before that, and you can say what you want about what you're told, but it's hard for me. I've always been a guy that's like, I'll believe when I see it. But, in this situation, it's one of the most important things in your life. It was hard for me to hear, hey, you're going to be a second rounder, you're going to be a third rounder, and then fall all the way to the sixth, and I know how this thing works. I know there's positional value in the draft, and I know there's a ton of running backs, but that's definitely a chip on my shoulder to prove who I am each time I step on the field. And that's why I play with so much passion. That's why I play for perfection, is because, who I am, and, I want to prove people wrong. Again, it's that small chip, is that I love proving people wrong. There's a part of me, and, I think that's kind of why God put me in this position and didn't allow me to go early, because he knew I was going to be more motivated by, the chip on my shoulder, which is proving people wrong. I think that's just a calling of mine, I guess.
I think that's a great thing. I don't have any, to me, motivation comes from motivation. And now we're giving, college juniors $9 million in planes. Where's the motivation? Where's the, you got to love the game. You got to love it a lot when they're paying you $9 million in college.
I wouldn't be able to handle that.
Yeah.
I don't know personally.
I'd like to try, but I don't know. How much has the game slowed down for you? We hear it all the time.
Yeah, I think last week was the first time where I felt the change. I still think my first start, it was like, I still feel like I'm sped up, but really last week it felt like it slowed down. I was back to kind of who I am, and I think that's why it kind of all just settled in for me and everything. So yeah, it's slowing down game by game. The one difference though is like no game's going to be easier. Like in college, you can kind of pick out, this game might be a little easier. In this game, everyone's super talented. Everyone gets paid. Everyone, you got to be on your P's and Q's every game. And so that's the one difference for sure. But I do think it's slowing down a lot.
Well, I knew this would be a blast. I knew it would be informative and fun. I appreciate it. I know it was a long time on your day off. Just continued success. Just keep that chip on your shoulder,
yes,
and keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Devin.
And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. You can follow me on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak. You can follow Steve at Steve Geller WWL. You can follow the show at Saints_pod. Thanks again to Mike Hoss for providing us that great interview with Devin Neal. He didn't do it for the podcast, but I'm very perfectly fine with taking it from our company and putting it on our podcasts. And I hope y'all enjoyed it. Either way, we're going to talk more about Saints Panthers, and I think Devin Neal is going to be a big conversation in how the Saints attack the Panthers. So let's start on offense. And Steve, what's your biggest X factor for this matchup for the Saints offense? We've seen them play the Panthers once, and I don't know if it's going to go the same way, but you at least have a blueprint for how you want to attack this defense, right?
Yeah, to me, I definitely want to see this running back group led by Devin Neal, Evan Hull, and Aldrick Estime kind of attack a Panthers front that's been decent against the rushing attack, but I think they've given up the 7th most rushing TDs in the NFL this year. Maybe we can, along with Tyler Shough, we've seen mobility kind of take advantage of that. I just I don't know what to make of the Saints passing game yet still. I have liked what I've seen from, like you mentioned, with Devon Vele kind of increasing his role in what he is for this team right now. And I like the effort and what we're seeing from Juwan. I just need him to get into the end zone. I feel like it's been forever since we've seen Juwan get a TD.
Yes, since the last time they played the Panthers.
Was it? Okay. Wow.
Yeah, he had that touchdown in the fourth quarter. That's what kind of put that game away. It was that kind of catch and run. J.C. Horn fell on both touchdowns. Yeah. One of them was the Chris Olave, the long touchdown to Chris Olave. The other one was to Juwan Johnson. And that's why it's funny. It's like, and I agree with you. I think you need to run the ball. I think you need to be kind of that, committed to the run game. But that's the weird thing about that game is the Saints didn't necessarily win because they ran the ball well. I would say they actually ran for more than 100 yards, and it was only the second time in the last 9 games the Saints ran for more than 100 yards on offense, and they've won both of those games. One was against the Panthers. The other was against the Bucs this past week. In that game, the biggest reason you won was, at least prior to that final possession, was success on third down, right? Like you had the big gain to Juwan Johnson on 3rd and 12. You had the big gain to Chris Olave, the long touchdown on 3rd and 8. And then you had the touchdown to Juwan Johnson again on 3rd and 12. So it's just funny because, I do think they need to run the ball well, and they did run the ball well in that game, but they also did the things like you say, why? Well, what does running the ball do for you? Well, it puts you in 3rd and manageable. Well, they succeeded doing running the ball and in 3rd and long. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But that long drive to close out the game where they burned the final 6.5 minutes, that was all about running the ball. I do think that I want to see Aldrick Estime be this short yardage guy because I think he has that in him. I think that's something that, if you go forward, I don't know if you add a running back to this mix next year, if Alvin Kamara is back part of it, you watch that guy move around, he's like a battering ram. No one wants to tackle that guy. And if you need just 1 yard in a phone booth, I think he's the guy that I want to go get it. Like you mentioned, the interesting thing is this Panthers team doesn't allow a ton of rushing yards, but they do have a lot of rushing touchdowns.
Right.
And the defense itself it's interesting because they are very middle of the pack in a lot of ways, right? Like they're not really good at anything, but they're not terrible at many things. One thing they are dead last in is pressuring the quarterback, right? They have 115 pressures on the season, which is last by a wide margin. The Saints are tied for 30th, but they have 126. So the Panthers are dead last by 11 pressures. And the biggest difference is the Saints have actually been pretty efficient at turning pressures into sacks this year. The Saints have 28 sacks, which is 21st in the NFL, which doesn't sound great until you consider, well, they're 30th in the NFL at pressures, but they have 28, the 21st in sacks. So they're doing a good job of getting the quarterback to the ground. The Panthers have 18 sacks on the year. So they're just not getting to the quarterback. They don't blitz much. They don't create pressure. They play the most zone in the NFL. So they're going to sit back and shell. It's what Hero Evero likes to do. It's what he's always done. And they're going to say, hey, if you can execute, you can dink and dunk, you can do all this, fine. But you got to be able to take advantage of that. They're not going to stack the box. You got to be able to run the ball. You got to be able to complete the ball on third down. And so I think if the Saints can execute, do both of those things, right? Establish the run and play well on third down, because you're going to be in third and manageable situations a lot, because this is just not a team that pressures the quarterback. They don't stuff runs. They don't pressure the quarterback. They don't blitz. All they do is put a lid on it and tackle. And so you should be able to execute. Like, that's why Tyler Shough looked as comfortable in the pocket as he has against the Panthers as he has in any matchup. It's going to feel like someone like turned the heat down on the oven, because the Saints have played high pressure teams over the last 3 weeks. The Falcons are top 5 in pressure. The Bucs are top 5 in pressure. The Dolphins are top 6 in pressure. I think they're 6th in pressure in terms of blitzes. And the Panthers are everything the opposite way. So this should feel like a comfortable game. Like, I need Tyler Shough to be the difference in this game. And I also need the run game to help him in that regard.
Yeah, and you mentioned too, I'm dying to see some short yardage situations where the Saints are successful. That 1 or 2 yard that you need, be able to plow over guys, and please, don't get stuffed or lose yardage.
Yeah, and I think one of the benefits. We talk about the run game and the zone read and the keeper game, and it's cool when that works for big plays, but just the threat of that alone is so valuable for an offense. Because if you go back and you watch Devin Neal's touchdown run, the lane he runs through, it's there because the play before that, you ran a very similar looking set, and Juwan Johnson comes through on an arc block, and I tweeted this if you want to go see the video. And Tyler Shough keeps the ball. All the linebackers crash down hard. They are not playing that keeper at all. Tyler keeps it, gets about 12 yards, gets down to the 4-yard line. And then the very next play, you run a similar looking set. Devon Vele comes through in motion, and it's just and you hand the ball off. Devin Neal has a lane, and the lane is there because Levante David is hedging, because it's like, oh, he might keep it, right? And just the existence of that in the game plan, and the fact that it's on tape and people have to account for it, it creates that extra 6 inches where Foster Moreau is able to seal a guy that would have otherwise just been crashing over the top of him and closing off that lane, and then there's nowhere to run, right? So that makes a huge difference down there toward the goal line, where we have seen this team struggle against the Panthers. They were down at the goal line, they couldn't run it in. Against the Falcons, they were down there twice and couldn't run it in. Like, just that part of the game where you just stretch the defense at the seams just a little bit, like, that's all that can make all the difference between getting stopped, stonewalled 3 times, and just having that extra 6 inches and getting in there. So, I do think that's an important part of the game. Let's switch over to the defensive side for the Saints. And, it's cliched, and we're going to talk about it again, but this is the Panthers team that runs the ball. You've heard my Bryce Young take. I don't think he's very good. I do think the run game is good for this team. And so what is your defensive X factor? What do you want to see?
Yeah. How do you bottle up this duo of Chuba Hubbard and Rico Dowdle? Because it seemed early on in the year, it was heavy Chuba. He kind of dropped off and Dowdle took over. And last game against the Rams, they kind of used both together. And it was like this, a big factor, I believe. And Chuba seemed to come alive again. He looked a hell of a lot better than he had at the start of the season. So that 1-2 punch, however you can contain it. And I, hate to say, dare Bryce Young to throw the football. They do have big receivers, though.
They do. And Drew Brees talked about that on WWL this week. So let's hear what Drew Brees had to say about the Panthers in this matchup.
And speaking of Carolina coming to the Dome, what's the key to beating Carolina a second time? Because we kind of humbled them. And Dotto, we stopped their running game and everything. And that just shows you it's pros versus pros. I mean, how could, a lot of people are puzzled, how could Carolina wax Green Bay and then beat the Rams? And then the Saints end up beating them. But how can we do that 2 times? Because they're not going to overlook us this time for sure.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you got to stop the run. I broadcasted the Panthers
Rams
game.
Yep.
And literally going into the game, on paper, the Panthers should have had zero chance, especially defensively. They were missing 2 starters. But offensively, like they had just come off that Monday night game where Rico Dowdle had run the ball like 5 or 6 times. And so just as you were looking out on paper, you're like, well, first off, what helps a young quarterback? Like being able to run the football, right? Establish the run. So, so you look at Chuba Hubbard and you look at Rico Dowdle and you're like, man, I would give these guys the ball 35 times between the two of them, either running the ball or just out of the backfield. But like they're really good players. Then you look at their receiving core. Dude, these guys are massive. Every one of the receivers is 6'4", 6'5". They got guys who can work the middle of the field. So it was one of those games like where you were just saying, run the ball and then find your moments to, hopefully get some matchups with some of these bigger receivers. And they literally executed the game plan to perfection. That's why they beat the Rams. And they got some turnovers because the Rams moved the ball up and down the field. So, I don't know. Look, they're absolutely going to be ready to play us, and they have a lot to play for, right?
Right. They tie with Tampa. Yep.
Yeah, they're in control of their destiny, but so is Tampa because they're gonna end up playing another time, right?
They're gonna play them twice. Yep.
Yeah. They got a lot to play for.
And so you heard Drew talking about what you just mentioned before we went into that clip, which is the Panthers have big receivers, and that can be an asset in the passing game, but it's also an asset in the run game, right? It's one of the reasons like you bring in Devon Bailey. Why? Well, you need someone who you can just send in on a block. Go back and watch Tyler Shough's long touchdown run against the Bucs, not the scramble, but the 34-yard on the keeper, and go look at who seals that lane. It's Devon Bailey coming through on an arc block, just finding the defensive back and sealing him off. It's like you don't need a guy that's gonna destroy somebody on a block, but you need someone that's gonna win, right? And the Saints had been in a lot of instances this year, they had been like one block away, and it was either Shaheed or Olave or Cooks just not getting that block done, and a play that could have been a long game instead is like a 2-yard gain or a loss. And so like that's what the Panthers have is they have a bunch of wide receivers that they're going to square up your defensive backs and they're going to block them, and that's where you can generate these big plays. All that said, the Panthers haven't been good at generating big plays in the run game, right? They've been a high volume rushing attack, but they have not been a high efficiency rushing attack. And the numbers kind of show that, right? They are 10th in rushing yards per game, but 15th in yards per attempt. And they only have 34 10-plus yard rushes this year. For a team that runs the ball as much as they do, they only have 34 10-plus yard rushes as 21st in the NFL. So they're not being explosive in the run game, particularly with Chuba Hubbard. Chuba is not an explosive runner. He never has been. 53% of their runs come inside the tackle, so it's very much like 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's the 4th highest rate in the league. They've also faced the 7th most light boxes in the NFL. So teams aren't necessarily like bulking up to stop them. Maybe they are more recently that Rico Dowdle has emerged, and that's a stat that's kind of going down. But either way, like this is not a run game that's going to be explosive, right? They're going to try to control the time of possession. They're going to try to kind of like lean on you down the field. And then once they do that, they allow Bryce to kind of do his thing. What I will give Bryce credit for is he hasn't been turning the ball over, and that's why they beat the Rams. Like you look at their schedule this season and some of the games, and you're like, how does this happen? How do you lose like 31-6 to the Browns, but beat the Rams? And it's because they forced 3 turnovers and didn't give the ball away once, and they won by 3 points. That's how you beat them. Like the Rams had the ball at the Panthers 22-yard line with like 2 minutes left in that game, down 3 points, and Stafford fumbled. Like that's how you're the Panthers and you beat the Rams, because you're opportunistic and you play clean football. So it's really what it is.
We talked a little bit about the big receivers that Panthers have and a legit number one dude in Ted McMillan. I think that's an X factor too. How's Kool-Aid going to match up against him?
Did a good job last time, but
right.
Tet was dealing with a hamstring issue. I don't know how much that limited him. He is the leading receiver among rookies in the NFL right now. So you think he's got like 861 yards. So that is a matchup problem. And we'll see. Like if he goes off this game, it'll be like, well, maybe last time that hamstring was a little more than they let on.
4 touchdowns last 3 games for him.
Yeah, and where Bryce has gotten aggressive has been down the field in the red zone, like throwing touchdown passes. Like his yardage, you're not going to ever be wowed by Bryce Young's touchdown passing or by Bryce Young's yardage numbers, but the efficiency has been impressive in that part of the field. So yeah, I mean that matchup's going to be an important one. And the Saints defensive backs, I'm going to chat with Grady Brown on Friday, the cornerbacks coach, and that young group. It's interesting. I think there may be a rookie wall being hit by a couple guys. Like Jonas Sanker, I think has struggled recently. Quincy Riley, I think, has gotten rooked a couple times. It definitely happened against the Dolphins last week. He had a couple plays. It was like, and like there's playmaking in there, but there's also young players are going to make mistakes, and these are still young players. So we'll see. I don't think you're going to have Justin Reed back. So you're going to see more Jordan Howden. He got the bulk of the reps against the Bucs. I think he played pretty well, so I'd expect you to see that again. But yeah, you got
this year's rookie class has contributed a lot more than maybe some of the past ones, by necessity, of course.
No question. And part of that is you're playing them, right? You're trusting them to go out there and play these hard downs. And in the during the Breeze era, you just weren't necessarily trusting guys as often. Like obviously 2017, you had a bunch of rookies. But Marshawn Lattimore, Marcus Williams, these are high draft picks, right? Alvin Kamara is even a 3rd-round pick. We're talking about, a 6th-round running back who's your starter, and a 4th-round safety who's your starter, and to a 4th-round cornerback who's your outside. Like there's a big difference between saying, yeah, Marshawn Lattimore, the number 11 pick in that draft or 10 pick in that draft, is starting for you on the outside, versus Quincy Riley, the number 160 pick in the draft, is starting for you on the outside. Big difference.
Yeah, just I would say most of the class you've seen in action this year.
Yeah, I mean, who other than Vernon Broughton, because he got hurt? Like, I mean, has any of them not played? Obviously, Maliki Mataval, the 7th-round picks are what they are, but even Fidel Diggs has played some. He played early in the year when Chase Young was hurt. And yeah, I mean, so other than the 7th-rounders, you've basically seen everyone.
Yeah, I thought that's been a good haul for the Saints this year.
Yeah, and then those are the drafts you need to kind of rebuild and turn things around. Like you need young, cost-controlled players, and that's what they have. And so,
sadly, haven't seen enough of Broughton.
He could be 0 for you. He could be nothing, and it would still be like a high-end draft class. And if Tyler Shough ends up being the dude long term,
right,
then it's like an all-time great draft class. So yeah, that's what I got. You got anything else before we close this thing out?
Man, oh man, back in the Dome Sunday. Looking forward to it. And only one of 2 left. It goes by so quick.
Yeah, so we got the Jets after this, and then 2 games on the road to close out the season.
Yeah, maybe you'll get some flurries in Tennessee.
It's going to be cold in Tennessee. I always forget that like Tennessee is not a warm climate state. Like I always think of it as a southern state because it is a southern state, but it's like far enough north that in December at least you're getting snow. So
that's when we looked at things when the schedule came out, was like that one could be a cold weather game.
Yeah, and we'll see what it ends up being. Like I look at the weather today and it's like in the 30s, but you'll see days where it's in the 50s. But it's not going to be warm. I tell you that much. Like it's not going to be like going to Tampa where it's 65 degrees. It's going to be cold out there.
Well, hopefully you're not soaked and wet.
Yeah, it's better. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Like it's
soaked and cold. I mean,
the rain games are driving me nuts, man. But
knock on wood, you've been taking your vitamins at least because you're not getting sick.
At least that's as far as I know. We'll see. I'm always a little sick. Sick of you. Sick of this football team. No. I'm having a great time. Either way, who dat? Go Saints. Thanks everyone for hanging out. As always, this is Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. We're going to keep doing it. The Saints are going to keep doing it. And hopefully they're going to be enjoyable to watch while that happens. We're getting ready.
Merry Christmas, who dats?
We still got like 3 more episodes before Christmas.
I know. I have one of my neighbors has an inflatable, and they've got like the countdown clock on the inflatable, which is pretty cool. I don't know. It's doing its work on me because I'm getting excited.
This is the time of year where every time I get into a car with my wife, she knows like the quick button to hit to get to the Christmas music. I'm just like, oh my God. I don't like Christmas music. I'm not a Christmas music guy. I think it's terrible. There's like one good Christmas song, and it's like Dominic the Donkey.
Oh my Lord. I'm glad you know that song at least, but there's much better Christmas songs.
Yeah, they're all bad. I like that one because it's not pretentious. So much Christmas music is pretentious. It's all boring, I like Dominic the Donkey because it's making fun of itself.
Jiggity jing.
Jingity jing. The
Italian Christmas donkey.
And that's a take that I have and will always have is Christmas music is garbage. It's garbage. It's the worst time of year for music.
I guess it's a Northeastern thing, Jeff, because not many people know Dominic down here in New Orleans.
Yeah, he's from New Jersey. No, he's Italian. He's the Italian Christmas donkey.
They just know the 12 yats of Christmas.
Yeah. Anyway, who dat?
Anyways,
go Saints. Turn off the Christmas music. Turn on.
Bah humbug. Jeff Nowak here.
I like Christmas. I just hate the music. I like the Alvin and the Chipmunks song. I just want a hula hoop.
So you don't have like Christmas music when putting like lights up or doing the tree?
No, we play the Christmas music. I just hate it. Anyway, that's my take. You can destroy me in the comments all you want. I'm right. Who dat? Go Saints. Talk soon.
Shuck it up.